Our final speaker is in his 38th year in the New Orleans market. He's captured all kinds of awards, a member of the Pro Football Writers of America, Golf Writers Association, member of the All-State Sugar Bowl Media Selection Committee, Saints Hall of Fame Media Selection Committee. He's an analyst for WHNO WHNO-TV show Monday evenings at 6 p.m. and serves sportsnola.com as a columnist covering the New Orleans Saints among other entities. Please give a warm welcome to Brian Allee-Walsh. Brian?
Thank you, Kenny. Apologize, I've got a frog. I'm sure probably like a lot of people fighting colds right now. First off, I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's always a pleasure to come and speak to the quarterback club. I know where your hearts are when it comes to this and I appreciate the opportunity. I want to wish Coach Crutchfield good luck Friday night, I believe, is it? Saturday night? And also to Doug and Tulane. I tell you first off, when I see Coach Crutchfield, it makes me think of St. Aug. My first years in the city covering high school sports, and I don't want to remind Cyril about how long it's been. But since St. Aug has won, but it's been a while. And he looks like he's got a team that's headed right for a state championship again, so I wish them luck. When you look at Tulane and what they've done under Curtis Johnson in his second year, I think it's so important for what they have done in a short period of time. And I think back to when he got the job and what it meant not only to him, but to the university. And I think he's proving that the decision they made to bring him and give him this opportunity was the right one. And I see only positive things happening at Tulane. I just hope the students appreciate the program that they're going to have when they have the new stadium built there. I hope they do support it. And I know the university, as long as it continues to give Coach Johnson resources, he'll be successful, and that is so important. What they've done this year is incredible, in my opinion. And he's built that team much like he's coached at the pro level. They've got 31 turnovers, which is second in the country behind Houston. He's got a very efficient offense with some NFL caliber kids touching the football as often as possible. And again, I think with a couple more recruiting years, he's going to have a solid base there. Just a real quick trip around the sports scene. A friend of mine brought this to my attention, and I hope it's true. It really doesn't matter if it's true or not because it's a great stat. But this might be the first weekend ever where LSU, Tulane, the Pelicans, the NBA team, and the Saints have all won.
But you got to get fantasy to make it the real bonus.
Yeah, that's right. And then he emailed me back and he said, you know what, I got to go back even farther. 1969, if you use the Buccaneers as the ABA team, that might be the last year prior to that. So, it just shows you, and I'm going to add another thing. I think what Southeastern, what Ron Roberts has done up at Southeastern in a short period of time, I think that's outstanding as well. They're fourth seed in the Division I playoffs, and they're going to be hosting a quarterfinal round game on December the 7th at Strawberry Stadium. So, it looks like he's got that program headed in the right direction. Kind of reminds me of what Tulane did under Wally English back in the 80s. If you look at Southeastern's roster, it's loaded with a lot of JC kids. I kind of shake on that, okay? I know that's a quick fix. I kind of worry about that. Just my thoughts. The Pelicans are 6-6. They go to San Antonio. It's going to be a tough one. The Spurs are 12-1. I think Monty Williams has got that team headed in the right direction. It's still a team that's young. They've got a lot of good young players they've brought in. And as long as Monty gets that team to play defense, they're going to be around a 500 team, and that's all. That's I think that might even get you in the playoffs as the 8th seed out of the West. So we'll see what happens there. LSU, I think what LSU did this Saturday against A&M showed one thing. Johnny, take the money and go to the NFL. John Chavis has done such a great job against A&M in 2 years, the 2 seasons. Think what he's done. This past weekend, I think he held A&M scoreless in one half. The first time that's ever happened under Manziel at A&M. And he's done it 2 years in a row, Chavis says. My question to John and others is, where was his defense? Yeah. Okay, where was the defense? we might be looking at a national championship potential if this defense. But I think Johnny Manziel is going to take the money and run before the bowl game. He's supposed to make a decision, and I think that's probably a good decision on his part. So let's now turn our attention to Monday night's game in Seattle against the Seahawks, Saints and Seahawks. I hope, I know this, I watched every down last night of the Broncos and Patriots game. It's an instant classic. When you think what happened in a tale of two halves, 24-zip, Broncos ran away with it. Second half, New England took over and ends up winning 34-31 in overtime. And if not for a blunder at the very end, it looked like a game that was going to end up in a tie. Those are two really good AFC football teams, but I still think the strength is in the NFC this year. And Monday night in Seattle, we're going to see the two best teams. Clearly, in my mind, I know Carolina's making a strong run. They've won 7 in a row. They're now 8-3, and they've got the Saints twice in the month of December. Those games are going to be pivotal to the Saints' success and where they end up getting seeded for the playoffs. But I will say this, I have picked the Saints every week this year. And that's an aberration for me, if you guys know me. But I have picked them, and I've lost on two occasions. I like Seattle at home. When you think what they've done, their 12th man is legit. The Saints have a 12th man too. But Seattle's 12th man at CenturyLink Field in the outdoors. I'm not sure what the elements are going to be. I haven't seen a long-range forecast. But the Saints are not the same team on the road, outdoors, as they are inside at home. They just aren't. Sean Payton feels otherwise. I know he's got a good road record, but I think when it comes down to important clashes like this game will be Monday night, I see Seattle just holding a slight advantage, and a lot of it is it being at home. Not only must the Saints worry about their playoff seeding, but they've got to hold off Carolina, which that's a really strong opponent suddenly. As long as Cam Newton continues to play well, they're going to be their fifth seed right now. And again, if the Saints would stumble in Seattle, you're suddenly looking now, the Saints are going to probably have to win both those games against Carolina, to ensure that they get a number 2 seed on the bottom. And that may not be as easy as it first sounded at the start of the season. When you look at Seattle and New Orleans, what Rob Ryan has done, people say, what is the biggest addition the Saints made this year? And I know that they've, from a personnel standpoint, some of those guys got hurt before they even were able to get on the field. But I think Rob Ryan obviously has made such a difference. Not so much scheme as much as what he has meant to the defensive side of the football. He has returned the swagger, and anybody that in being the years that have covered professional football and college football particularly, is that when you talk to players, they like to play for a coordinator or a coach who plays aggressively, who plays proactively and not reactively. And I think one of the problems last year, among many, was Steve Spagnuolo's approach was it was more of a reactive defense. Greg Williams' approach was more of a proactive defense. And certainly Rob Ryan's approach is the same way. They like to dictate where the game is going as opposed to sit back and take what an offense gives. And to a player, they love playing that style of defense. And I think it's showing on the field this year. Really, I know that no name has been bandied about this defense. Really, it would be hard pressed. I think Cameron Jordan probably is certainly going to get some Pro Bowl recognition. But there's not a whole lot of Pro Bowl players on defense. And again, that speaks to what Rob Ryan has been able to do. Piece together good players who believe and buy into their system. And that's a real strength for them. It has been this year. Arguably, Drew Brees and the offense, although they've had some prolific games, they have struggled at times. I don't think they've been the same, even though if you look at the numbers and everything like that, they've had better seasons. than this season. But if you throw it all together, special teams, offense and defense, this is arguably one of the 2-3 best teams in the league, and they've got a really good shot to play in Super Bowl 48 in New York. Now, I did see a long-range forecast on what the elements are going to be in New York on February the 2nd or 3rd, and it's not very good. And this team does not play well in the elements, such as Soldier Field in years past. So, and one final thought, and then I'll just open it up to questions, is that, you know, when you looked at this schedule this year, you saw that this team was playing on the road in New York, Chicago, and New England. They were throwing a bone. They played all those 3 teams in September and October. And then you watch what last night was like. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't even wanted to walk out in the elements at Gillette Stadium last night. So things look well. They've got to, of course, keep number 9 upright and healthy. And if they can do that, Sean Payton's an excellent coach, brilliant offensive strategist, and Rob Ryan's got that defense playing well. We'll see what happens. You know, that's why, you know, next Monday is the biggest game of the NFL season this week, because last night's game was incredible, and they've had some really outstanding games this season, but this is the next one on the calendar. But don't go to sleep on the Carolina and New Orleans games. As you all know, I think the game on December the 8th has been flexed to an evening starting time at NBC television, so they're going, this is the prime time for ready players in the New Orleans Saints. I think they play that will be their 4th or 5th in the last 5 or 6 weeks playing in prime time, and they deserve it. So we'll see what happens. Any questions?
Okay, quit dodging the real issue. We're exactly a month away. When are you taking consultations for Christmas presents, Santa?
Oh, that's right, yeah. I do this annual thing, and I owe you that $10, don't I, Jude? I do this thing for sportsnola.com, it's Santa Ball, and I just present presents to the local sports community and everything. I used to do it with the Picayune years ago, and I enjoy doing it. I hope people enjoy reading it too. So that'll be, I think we'll run that prior, you know, maybe a few days before Christmas and stuff like that. You know, while I've got the opportunity, you know, Kenny Trahan, I'm not going to deluge him with praises and everything like this, but Kenny did me a huge favor back in 2009 when I left the paper. I took a buyout, and Kenny gave me a job with the website, and I've been with him ever since. And he does such a great job, as you guys and ladies know, covering the sports scene, not just from a prep standpoint, but college and professional sports as well. And I don't know when he sleeps, okay? I don't know when he sleeps. I think he sleeps with the phone in his hand, I believe, you know, tweeting and everything like that. But he's done such a great job, and if you haven't looked at this website, every opportunity I get, either on the radio or occasionally TV, is we do try to tout it because it is a really good website. And I hope that if you haven't seen it, go to it, and I think you'll go back to it because it's got outstanding people, in my opinion, that are there, that are contributing, and a number of them are at the back table. And it's a great site to get your local news.
Coach Walsh,
Yes.
are you still coaching volleyball on the court at Ben Franklin? And will you be on the diamond come spring again for the Ben Franklin Falcons?
I'm a volunteer assistant coach at non-faculty coach, they call it Ben Franklin. I coach baseball, and I've coached volleyball the last few years, but I just stayed out of the way of Jody Pulizano. She's an excellent coach, and she's built a great program at Ben Franklin. But thank you for reminding me.
All right, Brian, you already said that you think Seattle's going to win this game on Monday night. So tell me what you think the keys is for the Saints to pull off a victory.
Well, one, they've got to, that 12th man, and it's loud. You know, in fact, if you go back, they've won 13 in a row at CenturyLink. And if you count the playoff game when they beat the Saints 41-36 back a few years ago, in that game, if you remember, Marshawn Lynch I think he destroyed everybody in his path en route to a 67-yard scoring run. And they have a monitoring station about 100 yards from the stadium that records the seismic activity. And it recorded seismic activity during that run. It's they call it the run that moved the earth, or the earth, you know. And if they can deal early with that crowd, I don't think you're ever going to take that crowd out of the game unless they blow them out. And I don't foresee that happening, but you know, they need to just be able to deal with those elements early and stay with it. And then they've got a much better defense this year than they did at that time. If you remember, I looked back at the 11 defensive starters for the Saints in that year. There's only one that is back, and that's Roman Harper. And he's a situational player now. Malcolm Jenkins did not play that day. He was hurt. I think Jimmy Graham was just a rook. He didn't play that game. I mean, this is a much better defense, playing much better at this time than when they have it. Certainly, you have to stay with them. Certainly, if you get out in the lead, that's going to help. But you've got to be able to deal with that. And again, the elements are going to be such that they're going to have to deal with that. Hopefully, it's nice weather. And then, you know, really, I just think, you know, I would want to put the ball in Russell Wilson's hand. If I'm the defense, I want to make him beat me. If they control the game, I don't think they certainly don't have the skilled players that the Saints have. I'm not really in love with any of their skilled people. Golden Tate's a nice player. Lynch is certainly a good running back. But their defense is awesome. And look for them to have to figure out how to deal. Where they had trouble in New England, I never thought that they solved the ability to go elsewhere once Aqib Talib took Jimmy Graham out of the game. And he took him out of the game. And if you watched last night, Aqib Talib is a mauler. Might be the best cover defender, might be one of the best cover defenders in the league. I mean, he's certainly physical enough. But Sean Payton and Drew Brees have got to figure out a way that if Richard Sherman, or they put Sherman on Jimmy Graham, or one of those DBs, and they want to take Graham out, then they're going to have to figure out, and they've got plenty of weapons. I don't know why they didn't do it against New England, but they're going to have to go to their wide receivers, and they're going to have to step up, which they didn't do against New England. DeMarcus Colston, Lance Moore is playing this game. He didn't play against New England. So those guys have got to step up. Kenny Stills, Nick Toon if he's up. You know, they're going to have to figure out a way to get them the ball if they indeed try to take, and they'll try to take Jimmy Graham out of the game.
Brian,
Yes.
sports attendance has been going down the last 5 years. I mean, even with the outstanding programs like LSU, Alabama, Saints, New England, the impossible ticket now is possible to get. You used to have to wait for somebody to die in Lambeau Field. Now you basically have to wait a year and you can get those tickets. Is that overexposure of the media? Is it just the culture of the things that come? Do you see attendance to major sports events? I mean, we saw it with Tulane, but there's a lot of reasons why that happened. But that's not unusual for small college programs. They went from 40, 50,000 people to less than 10 in 20 years. How do you see attendance and with the media and the big screen TVs and all that? Thank you.
Well, I think you hit some of it right there at the very end of your comment is that, you know, universities and programs are having to figure out different ways to entice the spectator to come to their venues. You know, and I'll speak for myself. I'd rather stay at home. In many cases, you've got access to the restroom, the refrigerator. You can flip channels. I mean, you know, they've got to figure out, and they're doing it. They're dealing with it, and they're going to have to make it successful as we go forward. But you know, you're going to have to make those stadiums feel like you're at home, and whether it means things like the NFL is doing now, they're giving you better access to information inside the stadium. They're going to have to do that much better as we go forward here, because the struggle for entertainment dollars is such now. And I think of LSU, an example here earlier in the year. think they had an afternoon kick and the weather was like 95 degrees and they had parking problems and you looked, and it was a televised game, actually a televised game. You looked up there at Death Valley, Tiger Stadium, and there were a lot of empty seats. Well, there was a lot of reasons for that, and one of it is the game's on television, but largely the weather and parking problems. So all of these things account for why there may be a declining attendance. But believe me, all the people that are making the big decisions on how to keep people and turning the turnstiles, they're aware of what they've got to do, and you essentially have to give a reason for people to come out and attend games and spend beaucoup dollars and deal with logistics, okay? And this is why I think it's so important for Tulane when they have this new stadium. I mean, they're not going to build it and they're not going to just come. So I think you can't minimize what Curtis and his program has done this year to have a winning program, a bowl team as they go forward, okay, into the new stadium. It's very important. I would hate to think the public relations end of it if they were just the opposite, if it wasn't a successful year this year. It's just a tough nut to sell. And but those are the things that programs and professional franchises are having to deal with across the board, not just the Saints or the NFL, but across the board. In order for the NFL to maintain its popularity, they're doing it. They're dealing with all these issues right now. All right, thank you so much, and you all have a great Thanksgiving.